Welcome. Welcome to our show here tonight. Welcome to We'll Sing and We'll Shout. I think this is episode 67, maybe. And we are live here. I'm your host, Steve Hansen. We're live from our recording studio here in Provo, Utah. It's a beautiful day out here. I was out playing some catch with Kenny earlier this evening, and it took me a little bit to get the old shoulder loosened up. But once I did, I was winging the ball around pretty good there. Sure, I've been sleeping better. The last
I
night
was wondering about that.
I slept pretty darn good last night. I wouldn't say it was like perfect night's sleep, but it was a lot better. I'm finally, after being home for a little over a week now, I'm finally starting to feel normal. That was a tough week because I just was not sleeping right. And then when you're
Yeah,
not
and you've been
sleeping
home
right,
for a week now, right?
yeah, a week last Saturday, previous Saturday, so almost 9 days now. But when you don't sleep right, then you're eating more, often eating more than you should, and that was kind of going on. And so
That's
yeah,
one of the reasons I was able to lose quite a bit of weight over the last 8 months was because when Martin was on strike, I was sleeping through the night. And now
oh,
I'm back to getting up halfway through my night of sleep to get him off to work.
right,
So it was really nice to get like 8 hours in a row every night. That was awesome.
right. So we're gonna have fun. We're gonna have fun here tonight for sure. I always enjoy you sharing details about your boyfriends because I remember these guys, but I don't always know the details of your stories, much like you don't know the details of mine. So this will be a lot of fun to hear some of this stuff. I don't think I have anything else inspiring to say here up front. So let's hand it over to you and let you run with it.
Okay. Well, mine's going to be pretty short tonight, but it's actually, there is actually three guys I'm talking about. But um, one of the guys is Doug Avery. What do you remember about Doug, Steve?
I do remember Doug pretty well, and I hung out with Doug quite a bit at times. Doug and like Donnie Drummond and
Now, what
you know
grade was
and
Doug in? Was he in your
D-
grade?
no, Doug was 83, so he was between us.
Between us,
Um,
okay.
Doug was just a really nice kid. He just had
Yeah.
a great attitude about himself. I think he came from kind of a bit of a challenging background, but he was a guy who
Oh,
just
his sister was in my grade.
okay. And then
Lori.
he had some younger siblings too. But Doug was just a really nice kid. In fact, when I was dating that Sherry Luring gal down from Sycamore from Mohawk High School, he actually let me borrow his yellow Barracuda car to go
Well,
down
that
and
was
see her.
nice of him.
And it's just like, what kind of a friend is that? They're just like, yeah, you can take my car.
Wow.
That's the kind of guy that Doug was. So he was really a
I
super
think
guy.
he had a bit of a crush on me. Um, but I never dated Doug, but we were friends, and I just remember how fun he was and how he just was always a joy to have around, I guess, is what I would say in
Yeah,
his case. And
yeah. I didn't
so
hang
Doug
around
and
with
my
him.
relationship was similar to my relationship with Dickie Rafe Snyder. That's who the next guy I'm going to bring up. In eighth grade, I think it was, an English class, Dickie and I ended up sitting beside each other, and we would pass notes back and forth, and we'd pass notes in the hall. And there was just something about him, and that I just trusted him, and we just became like best friends, almost like girlfriend best friends. Like it was never
Right.
anything romantic like a boyfriend girlfriend thing. It was just that I just really trusted him, and I just felt like he had my back, and I never had to worry about a boyfriend girlfriend thing with him because we just never were. And Jiminy Christmas, I have boxes full of those football notes that Dickie and I, that Dickie had written to
Wow.
me. Yeah,
Wow.
just tons of them. We used to write to each other all the time. And that really continued into high school. But I would say it was mostly eighth, ninth, and 10th grade that we were really close. And then it kind of died off. If we'd see each other in the hall, we'd always stop and talk. But it was really eighth grade, which was kind of a hard time for our family. If you remember, mom was kind of going a little nuts. And that's when she moved down to Columbus for a while. And we ended up moving into town for basically that one semester. And And Dickie was really just someone solid I could lean on. And then after the McKees left, I was just devastated when they left. Um, so anyway,
Can I
that was a
just
real. Go
can I
ahead.
just throw this out there?
Yeah.
So I do remember Dickie, and he was a really good kid. I want to ask this question, but then I also want to say something else. But how was he connected to the other Rafe Snyders in town? Um, and then, but the other thing I'd say is it was my seventh grade year that we lived uptown, and so it was your freshman year
Right.
that we lived uptown, and maybe that's what you meant to say, or that. But anyway,
Well, just my whole junior high. Junior high is just tough for girls. Just that age is tough. I mean, it's tough for boys too, but girls are just going through all these weird changes and it's difficult and it's just nice to have someone you can rely on like when you have boyfriend troubles and then you can come and talk to your best friend and be like, "Yeah, that guy was a real jerk to me." And he'd be like, "Yeah, I know he is a jerk. You should have stayed away from him." He is, I'm not sure how he's related to like Mike Rafe Snyder and those. I'm
right.
sure they're cousins, sort of like us and Roger Joseph are. Um, and I did see Dickie when I lived back in Bellevue. Every once in a while, he'd be driving by and he'd kind of lean out his truck window and talk to me. And then he showed me around that big facility that they built for like the football players and stuff to work out
Oh
in
yeah,
Bellevue.
yeah.
He was the one maintenance guy that was taking care of all that. And so he showed me around that huge facility and we had a really good talk that day too. So we've been in touch since high school. And
So he still lives there in town.
yeah, he's still there. He lives kind of back by the Bellevue Society for the Arts. I think in a like a brick rancher back in that area.
Okay.
But just a really good friend and just A plus
Yeah,
guy. Really, really
yeah,
good guy. Whoever got to
yeah.
marry him was a lucky gal. I'll tell you that.
I didn't know him well, but I knew enough to agree with what you're saying. He was a really good quality kid.
Yep.
So
So my third guy that I'm going to talk about tonight was actually a guy that I quote dated. And now you have to know in the LDS faith, we're not allowed to actually go on a date like in a car with another guy until we're 16. So,
right.
all these, I'm talking about all these times before I'm 16 and I have boyfriends. But it's because in our church, we used to go to these stake dances up in Cleveland that would last for hours. And so we would be there with the opposite sex and we would, maybe sit with them at the table, hold hands, maybe sneak off and kiss, not very often, but, they were always watching us. If we even like bear hug dancing, they would come along and
Yep.
tell us to stop doing that. Do
And
you
that was
remember that?
and dances would start at age 14. Well, I never got involved in the bear hug stuff, so nobody ever had to give me any warnings.
Oh,
So
fine.
so
I
go
guess
ahead.
I'm the only bad one in the family. So So anyway, so we would dance, and so I would maybe consider that a date, and we would make long distance phone calls to each other. He lived in Cleveland, and I lived in Bellevue, obviously. Um, and then when we would go on, occasionally we would go on these temple trips where we would be in the bus for 8 hours down to Washington D.C. and 8 hours back, and I might sit by one of them on the way down, sit beside him in the bus, that kind of thing. So definitely enough where like feelings could got started, and so Wayne was dark hair, kind of olive skin, thinking maybe from like a Latina background, something like that. Um, just, but just a dear boy. He's just always such a good guy and such a gentleman. And we just were attracted to each other. And so we hung out at those church dances. And that's, wrote some letters back and forth. He
And
was
I was
certainly a lot.
attracted to his younger sister. What was her name? Um, I'd have to think about that. Maybe it'll come
Oh,
to
and then
me.
we'd go to youth conferences, which would last for days. And we'd have chances to see them. And that was at 14.
And that was often over there at Worcester College. And of
Exactly.
course, there were dances as a part of those every night,
Right.
which were the big events. We used to have a lot of dances back in those days, and now these kids here, they'll have like one dance every 6 months or something, and a lot of them don't even bother going. So it's just a
Right.
completely different world than the world we grew up in. That's for sure.
Yeah, and then I would always be so disappointed when I would go to like prom or something at Bellevue because they'd have the freaking band so loud that you couldn't even talk to each
Wow.
other, which I thought
Yeah.
was just stupid. I mean, you could hear it
Yeah.
from when we turned the corner down by where Sherry lives. You could hear the band billowing out from the building, clear down there. And I just like it would hurt. It hurt my ears, and I was just like, and having been to all those state dances, I knew how nice they could be. And so, then you had to pay this fee to get into these proms, and I just thought it was nonsensical. I hated it. But
Well,
so that's about it for me for tonight.
the thing I was going to say, you brought up some good things here. The junior high dances, like we had a dance at the end of seventh grade, and
No,
and
those
some
were
of the,
okay because they got a disc jockey.
yeah, and then some of the teachers were kind of like put this together, and they were running the thing, and so there was music there, but it was at a reasonable level, and you didn't go there with a date. You just went there and you danced with whoever was brave enough to dance with you. And like we had this dance at the end of seventh grade, and mom and dad let me go even though I was only 12,
Yep.
and I danced with like 12 different slow dance with like 12 different girls, and I could probably pretty much name off this list for you. Um, but and maybe I'll do that sometime. And then in eighth grade at the junior high, it was the same thing. You just went to these dances, and there was Sadie Hawkins. It seems like there was some kind of Sadie Hawkins thing, and then there was a Christmas dance and a Valentine's dance, and maybe the
Right.
end of the school year dance.
Yep.
But you just came. You didn't have a date. You just went there and danced with whoever, and you got to spend time with a lot of different people, and those were just like the most amazing dances. And then you go to those stupid high school dances, and it's like you have to pair off,
Right.
and you're only supposed to dance with one person, and you're right, the music is so loud that you can hardly stand being there.
Not even enjoyable. I got
And
just a quick story about a dance at Bellevue. It was when mom was living in Columbus, and we happened to be down there over Christmas with her and dad and the kids. And mom,
I know where this
I
is
had a
going.
school dance. And so mom was driving me to Bellevue so I could go to my school dance. And this is when she come up over the ridge, and down below was a big patch of ice, and she swerved all over the ice, and we ended up flipping out into the field. This was in I guess it was the Orange Rabbit.
It was the Orange Rabbit, yeah.
Yeah. And so she demolished the Orange Rabbit, and I didn't have my seatbelt on, and she didn't either. She ended up in my lap. And then we ended up, some guy saw us flip off into the field. So he came and took us to the hospital. And then I don't even remember how somebody came and picked us up and got us all the way to Bellevue. And I got to go to the dance that night
Right, yeah, I remember
because I
that.
have pictures of myself at that dance with like Tim Miano and Lori Palmerson and
Yeah.
Julie Zunk. And yeah, so, it was very important to me to get to that dance. And
I
I stayed the night at Don Strayer's house. And the next morning I woke up and my arms were so sore from grabbing onto that dashboard to steady myself when the car was flipping around.
Right,
But
yeah, yeah, I remember that, and that was
dances were
the
important to us. It was just like something we looked forward to all year.
yeah. Oh yeah, yeah, for sure. The Orange Rabbit is going to come up in this story that I'm about to tell.
All
So
right.
it's
Well, I'm
kind of
going to
funny
give
that.
you the floor then.
So, well, I talked. Was this just last Monday? I talked about my experience dating Heather Sprague, and I don't want to say maybe that started right around the first of the year, maybe a little bit before Christmas. I'm not sure about the start date, but I know that it ended right around the end of February. And I really don't even know how exactly. I don't remember how exactly this transition took place, but I know that I had next to nothing to do with this. I was dating Heather. Christy Sutherland, who plays into this story really quickly here,
Okay.
was dating this boy named Jeff Harvey, and Jeff had a friend named Brian Moget. I think I'm saying his name right.
Now, all these names sound familiar to me because they were all in your class.
Well, these two guys were in a class younger, but these are
Gotcha.
but these are pretty standard names around Bellevue there.
Yep.
So, and I don't think Brian liked me dating Heather very much because, of course, Heather was in his class, and somehow I don't know exactly how this happened, but somehow Jeff ended up breaking up with Christy, or Christy broke up with him. But I think it was Jeff left Christy and decided to start dating Heather, and maybe his objective there was to pull Heather away from me. I don't know. Like I said, I don't even know what happened here. All I know is that somebody came and let me know that I was now Christy Sutherland's boyfriend. And so
Okay.
she was she was kind of bouncing off of Jeff, and she decided, well, since Steve had been dating Heather and Heather's now dating Jeff, I guess I'll date Steve.
Right.
But so that's kind of how that started. And like I said, I had like next to nothing to do with it. But when I found out that I had been chosen as Christy Sutherland's boyfriend, I wasn't in a position to argue. So so we started our little, relationship at the junior high, and she was this amazing writer. She would write these football notes to me, and they were 2 and 3 pages at a time. And whereas Heather and I think during the 2 months we dated, we might have traded 2 or 3 notes, and they were probably like a half page long. So
Right.
I'd had a little warm up with the football note thing with Heather, but I was not in anywhere near prepared for this experience with Christy, because she would write these 2 to 3 page notes, and she would do this 2 to 3 times a week. And she quickly let me know that I was supposed to respond to these. Like
Right.
response was not optional. I had to get busy and figure out how to respond to all this stuff that she was sharing with
All
me.
this input.
And I think I think she came from a broken home. I want to be careful with that, because I guess I don't know that for sure, but I think so. I really don't remember very much about what was in these letters, but I know that there was just a lot there. There was a lot of stuff, and she would just talk about people at school and things at home and things around town, and just poured all this stuff into these letters.
Kind of
And
cool.
I was supposed to figure out how to respond to this. And I would maybe get a paragraph or two out to her, and um but that was a big part of our relationship. So when you talk about writing letters with Dickie all the time, but so I would walk her home from the junior high there, under the underpass. She lived right over there beside McKim School.
Okay.
And so I'd walk her home over there, the underpass. I don't remember holding her hand, but that might have happened. Um, I know when I walked her home, I always felt like maybe I'm supposed to be kissing her, goodbye or something, but I wasn't brave enough to get that figured
Try.
out.
Yeah.
Um, I do remember this very clearly. One day, it was pretty early on in our relationship, so it was like early March, or sometime there in March. It was a very rainy day, and it was still dark outside when the bus dropped us off. And so it's pouring down rain. I walk in there. I'm somewhat wet or whatever, but I walk up the first flight of stairs. I'm now on the main level. Usually, this is kind of the area where I would find her in the morning. And so I'm kind of looking around, and I don't see her. And I kind of and my locker was up on the second floor, so I'm kind of looking up the stairs, I guess, thinking maybe I'll go on up to my locker. And here she is coming down the stairs. And there was some kind of a musical program or something that day, and she was in choir and I was in band, but she was dressed up. She had on this teal dress. She had on high heels. She had on this ankle bracelet, which were popular back in the day.
And we
And
always wore pantyhose back
and
then.
yeah, I'm sure she had those on, and her hair was all done up, and she had makeup on, and she just left this huge impression on me that day, on my heart that day. And it literally, I literally felt like I was dating Little Miss America. I mean,
Yep.
that was the impression that she left on me.
Yep.
And so I hadn't done anything athletically to speak of. I really didn't show up much on the football field because they didn't put me out there. Based on that, I didn't even go out for basketball, so I hadn't scored any points there. I likely wasn't the best looking kid in school, although maybe that could be debated. I certainly wasn't the smartest, but I did feel, Cheryl, I totally felt like I was the luckiest kid in that school. I felt like I was dating the cutest, most beautiful girl in town. And those days that I spent dating her and going to school every day, it was just like living in cloud nine. It was
Mm-hmm.
really pretty amazing. One day, a little later on in our relationship, like maybe mid-April or something, we're standing out front of the junior high building there, just off to the west a bit, and on the sidewalk there, and this is where we kissed. This is where I first kissed a girl on the lips for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
And there was this girl, Cheryl Braun. I'm not sure how to say her last name, and I'm pretty sure when I say Bond that's the right name, but she was like one of Christy's best friends, or was her best friend. She was often hanging around with us, not all the time, but quite often we were a threesome, and
Right. There's always a second girl.
she was the third wheel.
Right.
And so she's out there, watching this kiss, and she was kind of like our relationship coach. Like if I wasn't doing something right or writing enough, Christy would have Cheryl come and talk to me and like, okay, Steve, you need to do this, or whatever this was. Cheryl was kind of our coach.
I love it.
And so this was my first ever attempt at a kiss on the lips. And I hadn't read the manual about this and I didn't watch any YouTube videos. I left my eyes open and I was soon coached by Cheryl that I needed to be shutting my eyes when I was doing these kisses because this eyes wide open stuff was just not
Just a
acceptable.
little creepy.
So anyway, so that's one thing I remember about that. But um I kept getting this sense hanging out with Christy that I needed to get more involved with her. Like I needed to kiss her more. I needed to kiss her goodbye when I walked her home.
Uh-huh.
Um, and I also knew all the stories about the makeout sessions on Harmon Field. I mean, that was common
Oh,
knowledge there.
yeah.
Um, if you were younger and you went to Burger King after a football game or whatever, you could see this activity going down there on the hill there on Harmon Field. So
Yep.
you knew where this was all going down, and you knew someday you were going to be there.
Right.
And I just felt like I need to get myself prepared for this because I need to either figure this out or this isn't going to work out. So but I was running eighth grade track, and I was actually a pretty decent little eighth grade track runner. I ran the half mile and the mile. And one track meet early on in the season, I was up in the stands with Christy and some of her friends. This was at the far end of the stadium, maybe about 2/3 of the way up. I had already finished my running events, so I felt like I was kind of free to do whatever I wanted. But I was so caught up in my little situation with her that when the meet was over, I didn't realize that Mr. Mars and Mr. Klein had gathered the team together for a little post-meeting pep talk. And
Hmm.
yes, Mr. Mars and Mr. Klein were our track coaches that year, so that was kind of fun.
Yeah.
Because Mr. Mars, just for those who wouldn't know, Mr. Mars was our sixth grade teacher, both Cheryl and I. So we knew Mr. Mars pretty well. So
And
when I
everybody
realized,
loved him. He was like a favorite teacher.
yeah, for sure.
He was funny.
Um, so when I realized this was going on down there on the field, I was like, okay, I got to run, Christy, I got to go, I got to, so I'm running down there to be with the team, and Mr. Mars sees me coming, and he said something about Hanson is late because he's in love. He said
Ah,
he made some kind of comment like that. So
who said that, Mr. Mars?
yeah, Mr. Mars
Oh,
did.
geez. Okay.
So he really liked you and I. He really did. He have David? I think he did. He had
Yeah,
David too. I don't
maybe.
know. I don't know that he had Ben, but I'm pretty sure he had David.
Yeah, because Ben,
Um,
they moved over to York School by the time Ben was that age.
right, but I think Mars ended up over at York.
Oh, did he?
I think he did. So
Ah,
I don't know whether he had Ben or not, but so the Tiffin relays. So about mid-May, maybe early May, something like this, was the junior high Tiffin relays. So there were about 8 other teams that showed up there. It wasn't all NOL teams. There was like Seneca East and let's see here, Tiffin West, Tiffany. Oh, Tiffin was actually split into 2 teams because probably there was 2 junior highs. Old
yeah.
Fort was there, Fostoria was there, Shelby and Willard, and then us, Bellevue. So we went over to these junior high relays, and it was just the boys. I don't think the girls were part of this Tiffin relays. So it was just us boys. We went over there and we won this thing. And I say we, I didn't have a whole lot to do with this, but
Bellevue one.
Bellevue won. We had 75 points, and the second place finisher was Willard with 66. Shelby had 64. So we won by like 10 points. I ran in the 2 mile relay where you and 3 other guys would each run a half mile. And the other
Ah,
guys
gotcha.
who ran that with me were Mark Woodard, Joe Toll, and Craig Verhoff. And so I contributed, some points to this situation. But that was such a cool thing to go over there. You felt like you had just won a state championship to go over to Tiffin and win these Tiffin relays,
Yeah.
And so we get back to the junior high where they drop us off, and Christy and Cheryl, perhaps, I don't know, whoever, are waiting. I think there was a bunch of girls waiting there at the junior high, and so we walk over to Burger Chef, and I know, like, this is the evening that I'm going to be down on this Harmon Field with Christy.
Right.
Like I can tell this is what's coming. This is, so I just won the Tiffin relays, and now this is going to be an amazing day, amazing
Yep.
night. So
Yep.
we're walking over to Burger Chef, and we're standing out there in the parking lot. There was a circle of about 20 of us, just kind of standing around in a circle talking. And lo and behold, Cheryl, this orange VW Rabbit pulls in
Oh
through the
no.
parking lot. I hadn't called these people. What the heck are they doing here?
Right.
And this is such a bummer when you're in junior high, because when you're in junior high, the impression that you're trying to give out is that you likely
You're
live alone.
independent.
Yeah, you're independent. You probably live alone, perhaps in some apartment downtown here, but you certainly don't live with parents who drive around and look like this. And so
Was
that's
it mom or dad?
it was both of them.
Oh
Dad,
lordy.
dad had taken mom out for a little, I don't know what night this was, little Friday
Burger
night date or something.
burger chef or something.
And somehow they had heard that we had won these relays. So mom felt like, oh, we've got to go find Steve and congratulate him,
Right.
and I'm just like, what the heck are you people doing here? And so, my whole world just falls apart, like I tell Christy, I guess I
You
have to
gotta
go.
go. Right.
And so I get in the Rabbit, and there's all this excitement. Oh, well done, blah blah,
Right. And you
whatever.
just want to kill her, right?
And I'm just totally bummed out. So as we're pulling out of Bellevue on 269, they finally come to understand that I wasn't really ready to go,
Right.
and I wasn't wanting to go. And so they offered to take me back, which was, really nice.
Uh-huh.
But I figured by that time she was likely already headed home.
Right.
And so my night on Harmon Field with Christy Sutherland was totally
Just
messed up
disappeared.
by these two parents,
Right. Yep.
And so, and it was literally like, I don't remember these details exactly, but it was not very long after that. And it may have been the very next week that I'm standing there by my locker. And the only reason that I remember exactly where this locker is because right there by my locker is where this happened.
Right.
And I first thing in the morning, I'm standing there, and Cheryl comes up to me and brings me this football note, this little letter. And in this letter, Christy lets me know that she's decided to break things off with me.
Right.
And so I'm just devastated.
Yep.
And I actually had these little tears, forming in my eyes there in the corner of my eyes. And Cheryl picks up on this, and so she reports this back to Christy. And then Christy writes me another letter and apologizes for breaking up with me, and says she didn't mean to make me cry.
Uh-huh.
And of course that makes me feel even better about the situation.
Yes, of course.
But anyway, regardless, she moved on, and I'm left to myself. But that breakup with her was so devastating to me that I didn't date another girl for 2 entire years. It was
Wow.
not until the summer of 1982 when, and I don't want to throw out names here because we'll be talking about some of these here in upcoming sessions, but it was not until the summer of 82 that I next went on a date. Um, I did go to homecoming with Barb Peacock, and
Okay. Yep,
but
I do remember that. I remember
but
having pictures with us.
yeah, and I've got those pictures, and that could certainly be considered a date, but it was just a one-time thing, and we really just went as friends. Uh,
Yeah.
uh, I meant to throw this up here. So this is my little clip from us winning the
Oh, that's
Tiffin
really
relay,
cool. Good job.
and my name is listed. This may have been the only time I ever made the Bellevue Gazette, but my name is listed right there. It says Hanson.
Uh-huh.
So that's me in the Bellevue Gazette. Pretty important.
Yes.
But so yeah, I did not date for 2 years. And what was so devastating to me about losing her, the uh, it wasn't the kisses at her doorstep or there in front of the junior high, because that only happened once and it wasn't really that great.
Right.
And it wasn't the amazing makeout sessions on Harmon Field, because while that was indeed a goal and a dream, that was never our reality. What I missed about her, and what left this big hole in my life, was all this were these notes and all
Yeah.
this emotion that she poured into me.
Right.
Like I just absorbed so much of her in that 10 weeks, and she just poured so much into me, and then all of a sudden that was
It was
just gone.
gone. Yeah.
And that was what was so devastating about losing her. It wasn't like some big physical thing or something. It was just this little girl just poured so much into me, and whoever I was prior to that, emotionally, and whatever my ability to think and feel and express myself, Christy took that in about 10 weeks and multiplied it by about 10.
Oh, that's
And
awesome. Is that why you
and
got so good at your journal writing?
Yeah. I mean, like if you look at my journals prior to that, I'm really good about, Ohio State won the game and I got
Right.
this for Christmas and we had a blizzard and,
But
whatever.
nothing important.
But there's no really emotion or feeling there. It's just,
Hmm.
facts. And when Christy got done with me, I was a different person. I was a devastated person, but I was a different person.
Yeah.
But yeah, she's the one who really taught me how to think and feel and write. And she made me write. Like, you have to write to me.
Right.
You have to you have to get busy and respond to these notes because you're my boyfriend and that's your job.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, I guess I'll do my best.
Well, I
Um,
had a devastating breakup at the junior high too with that Jeff Ziegler story. I think I told you that.
right.
And
Yeah,
mine was a note too. Steve
right.
Bame handed me a note when I was getting off the school bus. So, yeah, we both have our times when we were really hurt.
Devastated. Yeah.
Yep.
Some people might think I have like some photographic memory, Cheryl, but that's not really true. But what I do have is I have this emotional memory, this emotional camera, and even video recorder. And when there is a lot of emotion present, I will remember the settings. And
Yep.
depending
I
on
think a
the,
lot of us have that. Like they're always like, well, where were you when Reagan got shot? That kind of thing. And it does
yeah,
sear in your brain.
yeah. And so the amount of emotion present determines whether it's a picture, a grainy picture, or whether it's a high definition video.
Right.
And in that business of breaking up with Christy Sutherland was a high definition video.
Yeah.
And so that's the only reason I could even remember where my locker was that year.
Yeah. Cause I don't
So
know that I remember where my locker was either. Like I think they moved us like from
yeah.
eighth and ninth grade. I think we got different lockers. I think mine was in the basement in eighth grade, actually, because I think it was by Mr. Garman's room.
Okay.
Down there by the cafeteria. I think that's where mine was in eighth grade. Ninth grade, I was up on the middle floor, I think.
Okay. That was such a cool school. That was
Yeah.
such a neat building, and I loved eighth grade, not for any other reason than just the girls that were part of my life that year. And even though I didn't date Kim was really important to me early on that year, and I got my little football note from her, and then I dated Heather for a couple months, and then I dated Christy. So it was just an amazing dating year for me.
Right.
And it wasn't until I was a senior in high school that really was rivaled. Um, but anyway, so that is our dating stories here tonight. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Um, she was she was a really important part of my life there, and it was kind of devastating to lose her. I guess I will add this. So you talked about Bill Nasani failing sophomore English. Um,
Yes.
I I did the same thing. I failed sophomore English. We'll get into my Mrs. Guerrero story some other time.
Uh-huh.
But when I took it again the next year, Christy Sutherland sat right behind me,
Oh,
and at that point, everything was healed and everything was fine, and we were
so you were
and we
just
were
friends.
we were friends, and we had a good time, kind of goofing around and laughing and whatnot. And I
Hmm.
really didn't. I was over her to the point where it really didn't bother me anymore. But but that first year or so, that that bothered me a lot.
Yeah.
So anyway,
Well,
all right.
next week for me, we're going into 10th grade. So I have some actual like real boyfriends
Yes.
that I
Yeah.
really, I mean, not, it just wasn't a junior high romance. It was actually people that I really cared about and thought I could maybe marry someday, that kind of thing.
Right. Well,
So,
I pretty much thought that with every girl I ever dated,
yeah.
and they would break up with me, and then I'd be forced to move on to somebody else. But I'm gonna end the stream.